Right, let's go live to Qatar now. You can see our chief reporter, Kaveh Solokol, and senior reporter, Rob Dorset, waiting to speak to us. Evening, gentlemen. Rob, I want to start with you, because you spoke to James Maddison a bit earlier. Now, we saw Maddison and the rest of the 26-man squad train for the first time after a long huddle. Do you know what was said in that huddle?
Yeah, Mike, we'll get to that in just a second, but I think it was significant today because we've had a special interview running on all day, haven't we, on Sky Sports News? You can still see it on skysports.com with Steve Holland, Gareth Southgate's assistant manager, where he's talked about the special relationship he has with Southgate and also about how they both communicate with the players at different times, whether that's pre-match, at half-time, or as today, on the training pitch before and during any particular England training session. And it was Steve Holland that was addressing the players in that first training session when they were first on the grass here in Al Wakra in Qatar. And so we asked James Maddison exactly what was said, and he gave us a pretty good insight. Have a listen.
Last tournament there was 28 sessions from the last game, from the meet up to the first game, whereas this is going to be like 4 or 5 or whatever. Which is obviously different, but it's new to everyone. You know, we're not actually sure how it's gonna fare because you don't know. It's the first time there's been a mid-season World Cup like this. So, but it's about the good thing is that a lot of the lads have been playing and are in good form and regular minutes at club football. So it's not exactly like they're going to need a lot of time to get up to speed. Majority of the lads play in Europe as well, where the games are every 3 to 4 days. So I don't think it's going to be a fitness problem, anything like that. It's just probably the preparation is not as dragged out over 3 to 4 weeks. You're straight in, and you need to, probably more important, that you need to hit the ground running because there's not as much time to prepare. Yeah,
and you don't get the benefit of playing together.
Yeah, exactly. There's no friendly games. There's nothing like that. Especially for myself, in an ideal world, you'd want the long build up, but it's the same for everyone, and it's almost that you don't have that anticipation of many weeks of building up to that first game because you're straight in, and probably takes a little bit. It probably helps on the mental side of things that we're straight in and there's no overthinking to do. So trying to look at the positives of the quick start. Yeah.
Well, Rob, England go into this off the back of, let's call it, some pretty indifferent recent form. So where are expectations?
Yeah, look, more than in different form, Mike. I think you have to say one of the worst spells they've had since Gareth Southgate took over as England manager. 6 games without a win. But James Maddison was at his optimistic best. He was very eloquent as well. And he was very complimentary about the quality of the players around him, the quality of the FA coaching staff and the support staff. And he was very optimistic about England's chances as well, and quick to remind everybody that, yeah, OK, those 6 games have not been great, but the quality in this squad has been there for all to see in the last 2 major tournaments, when England have made it through to a World Cup semi-final 4 years ago, of course, and then to the final of the Euros about 15 or 16 months ago. And crucially, like the captain Harry Kane, who's done 1 or 2 interviews today, Maddison wouldn't shy away from that difficult question about whether he feels England can win the World Cup. He says, yes, they can, but there are other nations as well who'll feel exactly the same.
I think fans always have the highest expectations. I think there's probably 8 or 9 nations where the group of fans will be expecting their team to win, and that's just how football works. You know, it's even it's the same at club football. The fans always have very high expectations, probably too high at most clubs, because that's just how it is, and fans always want to see the best for the team that they're supporting. So listen, we know the expectations are high, and in the last 2 major tournaments have been absolutely brilliant. The boys have semi-final and then a final. There's only that one step further that you can go, and that's winning it. So they're right to have high expectations. We've got a brilliant group, and hopefully we can go all the way. Yeah.
Endearing positivity there from James Maddison, the new boy in the England camp. He has been here, of course, before, but that was 3 years ago when he played just 30 minutes of a friendly that England won 7-0. So this is the real deal for James Maddison now. And he had some good news today to say he'd had a scan on that injured knee, which was a concern when we saw him go off the pitch for Leicester against West Ham at the weekend in the first half. It didn't look great. He's reassured people and said, look, he's been managing a bit of an issue with it for some time now. The scans come back pretty positively, and he has no concerns that he'll be able to take a full part in the tournament. And there was good news as well to see all 26 of England's players out there training on the first session with England today, including Calvin Phillips, who, remember, underwent shoulder surgery and has only played 70 minutes of football all season, and Kyle Walker, the Manchester City fullback, who had groin surgery on the 2nd of October. But since we saw him out there on the training pitch, Kyle Walker has told ITV that he's not going to make it for the first game. That game against Iran in 5 days' time. He won't be fit for that, but he says he'll be raring to go for England straight afterwards.
Rob Dorset, our senior reporter for the moment. Thank you. So that's Rob. Let's cross to our chief reporter, Kaveh Solokol, who arrived in Doha late last night. No rest for the wicked, Kaveh. Straight into it. Now talk us through the story of that journalist who had his live broadcast interrupted by security officials in Doha last night.
Yes, Mike, this is actually quite a serious question, because a lot of journalists who are here in Qatar are asking themselves whether they're free to say what they want, whether their cameramen are free to film whatever they want to film. And a journalist from Denmark last night had a pretty uncomfortable and disturbing experience when he was filming live at a roundabout here in Doha. And while Rasmus Tantholt of TV2 News was broadcasting live, he was interrupted by some security guards, and one of them actually threatened him. One of them said that he was going to break his camera if he didn't stop filming, even though, as you can see, Rasmus was showing him that he had the correct permit to be filming where he was filming. Now, earlier this morning, we managed to catch up with Rasmus, and here is his version of exactly what happened last night.
Of course, I was surprised, and you know, we were sitting there with the security guards after the live for about 30 minutes. I don't know if we were detained or if we just, you know, had to sit and wait there with them. And after half an hour, the supervisor, he came and he looked at our accreditation and he said, "Well, you can film. There's no problem." So, I mean, maybe it's a kind of a misunderstanding, but to me, it also shows how Qatar is when there's not a World Cup going on.
Now, the World Cup organising committee here responded pretty quickly to what happened to Rasmus last night. Earlier today, they issued a statement and they basically apologised to him. They said that the security guards had made a mistake. They acknowledged the fact that both he and his cameramen did in fact have the correct permit, and they said that they are going to advise all security guards who are working at the World Cup to respect people's permits.
Yeah, disturbing nonetheless. As is this, Kaveh. Are there fake fans at the tournament?
Yes, this is a bit of a strange story. Are some of the fans at this tournament real fans, or are they cheerleaders? That is what quite a few people have been asking themselves. For instance, last night when England arrived at their hotel here outside Doha, they were greeted by hundreds of supporters who were wearing, as you can see, England shirts, waving England flags, and they were very, very passionate. And they insisted that they were actually real England fans. Some people are actually saying, no, they're not real England fans. They're fake fans who are somehow being paid by the authorities here to drum up some atmosphere. Interestingly, again, we had a very, very quick response from the Supreme Committee, who are effectively the organising committee of this World Cup. And they said that they thoroughly reject any accusations that these fans are not real fans, and they say that they are disappointed and surprised. So these stories about fake fans, as far as the organising committee are concerned, are fake news.
OK. Now, England's first opponents, as you've been telling us for weeks, are Iran. They played behind closed doors today. Any idea how they got on?
Yes, they didn't get on very well. They lost 2-0. Now, this game A lot of people have been describing it as a friendly, as a game. Interestingly, the Iran head coach Carlos Queiroz has been describing it just as a training session. But look, it was a full 90-minute game behind closed doors between Iran and Tunisia, who've also qualified for the World Cup. I think they're in the same group as France, Denmark and Australia. And Tunisia won this game 2-0. And basically everybody in the Iran squad played at least 45 minutes, apart from Sardar Azmoun, who's one of their best players, forward for Bayer Leverkusen. He's been out with a calf injury. He wasn't involved in the game. I managed to get some quotes after the game from Carlos Queiroz, and he said, we don't like to concede goals, we don't like to lose, but we had the best opportunities until Tunisia scored. I think Tunisia scored in something like the 70th minute, but not a great result for Iran. They lost 2-0 to Tunisia. Of course, their next game for the first time ever against England on Monday.
Indeed. Our chief reporter, Carve Solokol. Before him, our senior reporter, Rob Dorset. Thank you to both.